Hopefully I have the right set of glasses. One of the things that's really great about getting old is that you need 6 pair of glasses to figure out which one will work when you have to speak. Thank you, Attorney General Framella, Congressman Pappas, the campaign, and my dear friend and wonderful former boss, Sarah, for your kind words and the honor of this award. When the award was established in John Tobin's name, I thought, what a perfect way to honor such a wonderful human being and great lawyer who has done so much to advance the state towards the elusive goal of equal justice for all. Now you go and devalue that award by conferring it upon a person who simply showed up for work for 47 years because he wasn't creative enough to think of another job. Uh-oh, I'm never going to let ChatGPT write a speech for me again. People keep asking me how I managed to stay at NHLA for so long, and I think I finally figured it out. It's like the movie Groundhog Day. I don't know if anybody's seen it here. If you haven't, it's about an obnoxious, cynical TV journalist who was sent to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania to cover the annual Groundhog Day festivities. Soon he discovers that he can't get out of Punxsutawney until he truly understands what the event is all about. When I first began working at NHLA, I was not much of a lawyer, and I barely knew what I was doing. Like Bill Murray's character in the movie, I kept trying to get better, but I couldn't get out until I got it right. Well, I never realized it would take 47 years to get it right. As you listen to this, please don't think that I'm a humble person. Note that I did say I finally got it right, and that may be a big overstatement. Seriously, when people do ask me about how I was able to do it so long, I've had to think about the answer to that, and it really isn't that complicated. First and foremost, it's the work. The prospect of doing legal aid was the reason I went to law school in the first place. I was enthralled by the idea of using the law to help poor people gain access to the most fundamental necessities of life and to help them obtain a modicum of justice. And I was excited by the opportunity to engage in meaningful efforts to reform the law to make it more responsive to the needs of marginalized people. And in all candor, I was thrilled by the idea of being a hero, although believe me, I got over that real fast. Second, my coworkers. If I tried to name all of the talented, dedicated, and compassionate colleagues with whom I've worked for 47 years, support staff, paralegals, and attorneys, you would all be sitting here and ordering dinner before I finish. But if you've ever worked at NHLA, LARC, Pro Bono, or 603, please know that the award I get today is really an award that belongs to all of us. Without your support, without your friendship and tolerance, my career at NHLA would have been decades shorter. As much of it as a cliche as it may be, nothing was more important in prolonging my career than my family. Campbell Harvey, my wife, who while creating a brand new family law practice with her partner, Ellen Mahoney, was also the primary parent for most of our kids' childhood. Moreover, the work that she did as New Hampshire's first female federal law clerk and her foundational work on domestic violence has always been an inspiration to me. To my children, Jake and Maggie, of whom I could not be more proud, thank you for handling the empty space that I left due to periods of intense work without complaint. But of course, at the end of the day, what kept me coming to work year after year was the clients. Many were sweet, helpful, trusting, and grateful for our efforts. Some, not so much. Occasionally, they were demanding, difficult, and convinced that a free lawyer could not possibly be a real lawyer. Yeah, come to think of it, my parents felt the same way. three of them had one thing in common: a determination to endure and overcome hardships that most of us never have to even think about. As an arrogant young radical, I thought I knew all about the system that oppresses poor people, and perhaps a few of those ideas were right. But a few years at NHLA forced me to confront the painful, everyday reality of poverty and the almost intolerable challenges that poor people have to deal with on a regular basis. How do you provide a decent home and a safe environment for your kids when the rental market demands that you pay over half of your monthly income for rent, or more? When inevitably you get evicted because you couldn't afford to pay that much rent, how do you get another landlord to rent to you when you have the eviction for non-payment on your record? What do you do when your children are when you and your kids are living in your car and DCYF is threatening to take your children if you don't find a place to live and there are no available affordable apartments and not even room in family shelters? What do you do when your child has been poisoned from lead paint in your apartment, but you have no place to move to? And what does it feel like to finally attain a rent voucher after 5 or more years on the waiting list, only to lose it because you couldn't find a landlord who would be willing to take it? How do you get to a critically important meeting with teachers and school officials while desperately searching for a home, a job, and attending meetings with caseworkers that are required for you in order to keep your meager public assistance? These are just a few of examples of the kind of stuff that we at NHLA and 603 have to see every day. How many of us here today could have dealt with situations like these? How many of us could? I don't know how they do it, but somehow so many of these people rise to meet these brutal challenges, and countless others as well. The barriers that prevent our clients and their families from escaping poverty are far too numerous to mention. Some are unlikely to be eliminated by the legal system, but other barriers, such as domestic and sexual violence, housing discrimination, or irrational or oppressive welfare regulations and practices, we can and do address. And to be able to relieve clients of these kinds of burdens was reason enough for me to come to work every day. But it didn't take long for me to see that most of the time it's the client's own blood, sweat, and tears that enables them to navigate the minefield that's poverty. They're the ones who really deserve the award today, not me. Speaking of barriers, some of you may know that I've spent a lot of my early career trying to chip away at barriers that play an outsized role in preventing us from achieving the stated goal of the National Housing Act of 1949, which is a decent home and suitable living environment for every American family. By the way, in case any of you are wondering, I was not around to work on that legislation. Most of us in this room today are lawyers, and we can have an important role in addressing one significant cause of our failure to meet the goal of that enlightened legislation, and that is local land use regulations. We need to take a close look at these regulations with an eye towards identifying the burdensome and unnecessary hurdles that they impose on people who seek to create affordable housing, particularly multifamily and manufactured housing. We can get involved in the master planning process to set our cities and towns on a path for becoming inclusionary communities. We seem to be finally making some progress in that area of permitting workforce housing, and that's so important. If, however, we're going to make serious progress towards ending homelessness, we need to recognize the needs of people who are not in the workforce as well. People often regarded or spoken of as those people. These are people who often have significant mental, physical, or educational disabilities, who suffer from substance abuse disorder, and/or are struggling single parents. In order to end homelessness, municipalities must also make spaces for transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, group homes, and other initiatives to house people who are in the greatest need. Involvement in the local planning and zoning approval process can be quite mundane, even boring at times. But in this day and age, it can also be dauntingly controversial. Either way, it is essential. We can have the most generous federal and state housing programs imaginable, but by its very nature, housing is local, and all of the funding in the world won't do anything if there is nowhere to build it. Most importantly, all of us, liberals, progressives, conservatives, environmentalists, and public officials, we must all look at the way that we contribute to what they call NIMBYism. We need to get past stereotypical objections to development of affordable housing, such as adverse effect on property values, traffic congestions, burden on public schools, impact on public facilities, and my favorite, the changing the character of the community. But you know what? If the community consists of overwhelmingly white, middle-class, single-family homeowners, then its character must change. Otherwise, we will never solve our decades-long housing crisis, we will never effectively address structural racism in housing, and we will utterly fail to reverse the course of society's ever-widening inequality. I've spoken a lot about the wonderful aspects of my years at NHLA, and for the sake of my former colleagues, however, I will end by sharing the lousy part of the job. I won't take all that. No, every week we have case review meetings at which we decide which of the many cases presented that we will accept. There are those that we can't help because there's no legal remedy to their problem. Others we don't accept because the case is way outside of our priorities and expertise. But too many cases are rejected simply because we didn't have enough staff to take them on. I can't describe how it felt week after week to reject cases that I'm confident I could have successfully resolved if I could only find the time without neglecting existing clients and commitments. I'm sure that many of you out there have experienced this from time to time, but at NHLA we make these choices every week, knowing that if we don't take the case, nobody will. Decisions like this year after year really wear you down, and quite frankly, that fatigue was no small factor in my decision to retire. As I near the end of my remarks, I know far too slowly, I ask all of the lawyers in this room today to find a way to help clients who can't pay you, hopefully through the pro bono program. Your time and effort will make such a difference in the life of people in crisis, and I guarantee you that you'll learn something important every time. And please give what you can to the campaign to expand the ability of my colleagues, the former colleagues at NHLA and 603, to address the desperate legal needs of low-income families. Finally, I know that all of you out there are doing, or most of you, are doing what you can to expand access to justice. Lawyers, judges, and non-lawyers in your own way are all trying to make this state a better place for marginalized people and communities. If not, we wouldn't be here. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your support for the campaign. And thank you for the honor of your presence here today.